From the very first moment I held Talia in my arms, slick with newness and wrapped in a cry that shattered me in the best way. I made 2 silent promises. I didn't say them out loud, not to her mother. Not to the nurses in that delivery room, not even to myself in full sentences. But they took root somewhere deep. I would love her. And I would show up always, no matter the weather, no matter the distance, no matter what her mother and I became. After the ink dried on the divorce papers, those promises became the rails. I lived on the uncheckable things, and somehow, through the messy middle of custody schedules, tight weekends, and lonely holidays, I kept them. I was there when she lost her first tooth. I was there when she learned to tie her shoelaces, even though Harper insisted. I was teaching her the wrong loop method. I drove through snowstorms just to make it to her Christmas pageants. Even when I had to sit in the back row, beside the janitor's mop bucket, I held her hand after her wisdom teeth were pulled. Stayed up late editing her college essays. One knew her Starbucks order better than mine. Even when Harper remarried and Malcolm entered the picture, I stayed in my lane. And showed up. There was no contest. I didn't try to compete. I didn't need to. I was her father. So when Talia got engaged, she called me first. Not Harper. Not Malcolm, me. I still remember the sound of her voice bubbling through the phone, joy layered with nerves. Dad, she said, I want your help planning the wedding. I said yes before she even finished the sentence. It wasn't about the money. It was the invitation to participate. To be seen. She didn't ask for a checkbook. She asked for my presence. That meant something to me. The venue? I handled it. I toured 5 locations and booked the one she fell in love with. Before she even walked in the door, the catering. I was on it, called in favors, sampled menus, negotiated the price down, threw in a dessert carousel, just because I remembered how much she loved those as a kid. And every time she thanked me with that wide smile of hers, the one that tilted up just like mine, I felt full, useful, whole. It wasn't just about planning a wedding, it was about being part of her life again, in a way that felt solid, permanent, for the first time in a long time. I wasn't on the sidelines. I wasn't a bi-weekly call or a split holiday obligation. I was her dad. And she was letting the world see it. Harper was around, of course. She always had a way of making herself central, but I let that slide. I wasn't doing this for Harper. I wasn't even doing it for show. I was doing it because I believed in that walk down the aisle, that moment when I get to stand beside my daughter, take her arm, and give her away, not because I owned her, but because I had raised her, loved her, and earned that step, that small ceremony of recognition. Meant everything to me. It was the culmination of years of consistency, of sacrifice, of biting my tongue when Harper made me look like a footnote in Talia's story. I remember the first planning session, just the 2 of us. We sat at that little Italian place, near her old high school, the one where she used to beg for lasagna and extra breadsticks. She had her laptop open, tabs loaded with wedding inspiration, boards of soft pinks and sage greens. You've always had good taste, she said. She called me her planning MVP. I grinned like an idiot. My chest puffed a little, not because I was doing anything spectacular, but because she noticed I was being seen. Finally, not just as a background parent, not just as a funding source, but as a piece of her heart, and I held on to that. Like it was life support, even when Harper started whispering. Even when Malcolm started showing up to meetings I wasn't invited to. Even when Talia started saying we instead of I. Even when the seating chart showed someone else walking her down the aisle. Even when she brought the bottle of wine to soften the blow. Even when she said, Dad, Malcolm's going to walk me down the aisle. Even then, I didn't break. Not outwardly, because I remembered that promise. I will love you, and I will show up. And no matter how much it hurt, I would keep that promise, even if it meant sitting quietly in the back row, next to the janitor's mop bucket, with something bitter, and my throat closed around a knot I hadn't expected to rise. I looked at her, really looked, not just at her face, but at her, the woman she'd become, the woman I helped raise, and what I saw wasn't cruelty. It was detachment, guilt, maybe, but not regret. I set my fork down gently. You didn't have to tell me that, I said, voice even. Or maybe you did, she blinked. Dad, I didn't mean it like, I know, I said. It's fine, but it wasn't Dot, it was the opposite of fine. It was the coldest realization I'd had since this whole thing began. She didn't want me to understand. She wanted me to disappear, quietly, the calls, the updates, the financial. Strings, they weren't connection. They were convenience. She still wanted my involvement. Just not my presence, and that was the moment it clicked. I wasn't family. Not anymore. I was a sponsor. The realization landed with the weight of years. Every holiday missed. Every work trip I rescheduled. Every birthday surprise. Suddenly, it all felt like it belonged to someone else's life. Because in the version she was building now, I was just the man who made things easier, not warmer, not better, just easier. She didn't want my voice at the toast, or my hand on her arm, or my footsteps beside hers. She wanted my account number. And my silence, that's what I was now. Silent, funded, forgotten. The rest of brunch passed in shallow conversation. I nodded in the right places, paid the bill, and hugged her goodbye. She squeezed me tightly like she still believed the performance. I didn't squeeze back. I let it happen. Then I let her go. I watched her walk away, coat flaring behind her like some kind of veil. And I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out the last part of me that believed I mattered. In the way fathers are supposed to, I went home and sat in the living room. With the receipts, literally, I pulled out the wedding folder I'd kept. Contracts. Emails, itemized payments, each one had been carefully planned, reviewed, and executed. By me. And each one was attached to a day I wasn't welcome at. I ran my fingers over the pages. Like a man touching relics from a past life, this wasn't just about money. This was about meaning, about what it meant to be part of something. And what it meant to be discarded. I thought of calling her. Thought of asking if she understood what she was doing, but I didn't, because by then, I realized the truth wasn't hidden. It was spoken, plain, casual. She didn't even flinch when she told me Malcolm had taken my place because, to her, it wasn't a betrayal. It was a convenience, and I wasn't supposed to object. I was supposed to keep nodding, keep paying, keep loving quietly from the distance she'd assigned me, but I'm not built like that. I never have been so. That night, I poured a glass of whiskey and sat on the back porch watching the wind rattle the leaves, and I made a new promise. One just for me this time. If I couldn't be part of the memory, I wouldn't be the one funding it. If I wasn't welcome as her father, I wasn't going to